My name's Jeff Ash, and I came to Helen in November of '72. My wife and I have been married almost 1 year, and my dad had a serious stroke in Gainesville. So we were compelled to move back up this way so I could help take care of him. So I chose to come on up to Helen, and Mr. Jim Wilkins helped me find a home, and that was the best thing that could have happened to me after Daddy got sick. So we moved here in November of 1972. It's real funny, but I'd been here a year, and in December of 1973, Bob Fowler came to me and asked me to run for the Helen City Commission, which I did, and I think about 20% of the whole population ran for that seat too. But I was fortunate enough to win one of the seats, so I started my service in government in January of 1974. I got off the city commission in 1993 and did some work for White County with the Development Authority of White County, also with the White County Water Authority, which was a lot of fun working with those guys. And I stayed involved with the White County Chamber and the Helen Chamber of Commerce through the late 90s. In around 2000, the City Commission put me back on the Downtown Development Authority Board and Planning Design Review Board, which I enjoyed doing that in that capacity, and then got back into politics in 2011. It was absolutely the greatest place in the world to live. I mean, with taking care of a sick loved one and still needing an escape, Helen, Georgia provided Paul and I the greatest place to start our family. We have 3 children that were all born and raised in Helen, went to school at White County, and now they live in different areas. Funny thing is, I always told them when they went to Georgia or any place, I said, do me a favor, all you have to do is stick your hand out and say, I'm Neely Ash or Jeff Ash or Brian Ash. I live in Helen, Georgia. They know where Helen is, and they told me later that worked for them. I've been involved in banking since 1970, and I took a new job in January of '73 with First National Bank of Habersham County. The bank was owned by Lewis Reeves, quite a banker, and I had the opportunity of commuting back and forth from Helen to Cornelia, Georgia. In that time span, Mr. Reeves had made a lot of loans in Helen, so he put me in charge of those. And later the bank was acquired by J. Mac Robinson out of Atlanta. And I had an opportunity of working with Mac, not only at First National of Habersham, but the creation. He gave me the money to help start and organized the White County Bank. And we opened the doors to that bank in October of 1976. Right in the middle of the beginning years, the formidable years of Helen. The town is centered around spurts. You know, you'd have 2 or 3 years and then it would slack off. We grew too fast to begin with. We outgrew our sewage treatment facility plant, which was the best lesson I ever learned. I mean, when you have to put a moratorium on the town, that's not healthy. But it did signal that growth was outrunning our ability to keep up with infrastructure. That'll never happen again. We make sure that our capacity levels are very adequate. We have working relationships now with the White County Water Authority. We have engineers and a great city manager that monitors all of this. So, Stephanie, you have to keep your infrastructure at a level that on any given day, we might have 500 people in town, and that's it. Or we could have 15,000. That's called functional population, and we're ready for it. We have to be ready for it. $6 million budget. The first budget I did for Bob for the fiscal year 1974 was $115,000. The one we just passed in June topped $6 million. Kidding. Bob was like a big brother to me. His son Rob and my youngest brother Darren were the same age, and Bob encouraged me to get into politics. He knew I was in banking, and Bob instituted a way of operating official meetings in such a way that we all learned from it. And his name is Robert, but he always held up the book, Robert's Rules of Order. He was also the executive vice president of Orbit, which you'll hear about later. But between the two, Bob was known statewide, and even in 1969 and 70, he was promoting Stay and See Georgia behind the scene because of his knowledge and the people that he knew across the state. Everybody in the 70s, with Pete pushing everything as hard as he could, our elected officials, our representatives, our senator from this area, all of these people were highly motivated to help us because nobody had seen anything like this happen. So if we went to the state of Georgia for help, we had Ralph Twiggs, Carlton Caldwell, John Foster. We had the representatives from Gainesville. It's really amazing. It's a true story of getting things done and never having to beg. People helped us because they really believed in us. Farmers Home Administration out of Athens got on board, and we learned how to build infrastructure. And we did it one step at a time. It's been 50 years. I mean, you look back on it and kind of hard to remember some of those meetings, and it's very hard not to forget some of those meetings. Of the four founding fathers, of course, Pete was the driving force, the innovator. Jim was the stability because of Orbit. John, with his drawings, that helped Pete in giving everyone an idea of what this town should look like and would look like, and that's when we adopted the correct ordinances for that. Bob brought to the table, when he got elected, that stability to let's create a mayor and city council form of government that knows how to meet, knows how to get things done, to implement proper accounting, proper ordinances, to govern the growth. At that time, we were having a lot of federal regulations handed down to us. A perfect example of that is the National Flood Insurance. Everybody in this town hated it, absolutely hated it. But guess what? We had to adopt it. What they did was they issued a federal directive that no financial institution could loan money in an incorporated area like Helen unless we passed the National Flood Insurance ordinances, and we did, I think in 1979. So today you see structures built up above the floodway to help preserve those buildings. So when you get that kind of mixture of what Bob brought to the table with a lot of great people I got a chance to serve with. I've served with mothers and fathers of current commissioners that I've served with, and I'm proud of that. My brother served 12 years. I mean, this has been an exercise in, if you're going to live here, you better help the town out. I think the key thing to the city, how should I say, progressing, is to always put a foot forward that shows financial stability. So that if someone builds something, you don't want them to lose money on it, you want it to appreciate. And appreciation comes from tourist activity, sales, beauty, that combination. These mountains, the Chattahoochee River, we've got all of it. We need to protect it. One key thing that I love telling everybody, we don't put a drop of water in the Chattahoochee River from our sewage system. Yet that was the hardest thing to accomplish. And our water capacity is such that we could add a lot more things. But we're real careful when we do that with our building department to calculate the impact of whatever we do so that we never get in trouble again like that. The next 50 years won't be as much fun, I don't think, as it has been for us, because there was an excitement there that we all craved, we all enjoyed. Now we're Helen. We're a big boy town, big girl town. So we've got to be careful to make sure that every square inch of the property within the corporate city limits is maximized to its highest and best use, that it helps appreciate the property values of the properties adjacent to it, that we have proper parking, proper management, proper policing, and that's called not wealth creation, but anytime that you can do new growth and that new structure or that new type business creates value for the whole town. Because what we're trying to do is create a place for people to come, people to stay here. And please understand this too. One thing that we've learned too is the city limits sign. Nobody knows where it's at. So we've got and must, over the next 50 years, probably see the finest group of towns from Cleveland to Dahlonega, back up over the hill to Blairsville, Young Harris, Hiawassee, the Saltee area, and all that will become a focal drawing point. With the wineries and what they've done just in the last 10 years, has created a new approach to land value, and I'd love to be around 50 years from now and see how much more it's changed, but I couldn't be more proud of what we've already done.